Right, hello guys, welcome back. Good morning. Later today is when the Contest Sundered Doctrine Dungeon race begins. So today I just wanted to show you the builds that myself and my fire team are taking into the dungeon, and also how we're going to approach things like damage strategies and so on. So I'm going to be playing on a Titan, so we will start with Titan first. This is the build that I'm going to be going into the dungeon on. I'm going to have an Eager Edge Sword, Choir of One, specifically with the Destabilizing Rounds Catalyst. This makes the gun very good now if you haven't tried it already, and then just a multi-mac from Banshee. And as far as the rest of the build is concerned, we are just going in with Consecration Titan. Despite Consecration receiving a nerf, this build is still very good. In fact, it's probably about the same, if not better, because of the addition of Bolt Charge, because if you didn't know, if you use Facet of Purpose now, instead of it making you amplified, it now gives you a stack of Bolt Charge whenever you pick up an orb. And because we're not going to be using any other super other than Thunder Crash, this just makes perfect sense. If you want to take a screenshot of all the abilities and so on, then please feel free to do so, but this is just your classic bog standard Consecration build. Of course, we have the Spirit of Inmost and Syntho class item to go with it. So alongside that, we have the Thruster class ability because it has the shortest cooldown, and then of course Frenzied Blade. You can either choose between Shackle or Glacier Grenade. I prefer Shackle Grenade, but it's totally up to you. Obviously Consecration Knockout, and then I have these 5 fragments here. The important ones are having Facet of Purpose, Balance, and Protection. The rest are kind of up to you. So here are the mods. Again, take a screenshot if you would like. We just have some heavy ammo finders, a kinetic siphon, which I should probably change for a void siphon, come to think of it, and then just triple heavy-handed, scavengers, powerful attraction, special finisher, you know, standard stuff. Then as far as the artifact is concerned, my team is not going to be using the Vault of Glass weapons, so I've actually opted not to go for the Legend Incarnate mod, and instead this is the distribution I have got. I don't have all 12 mods, I only have access to 1 in the final column, so I'm just going to swap between either Defibrillating Blast and Particle Reconstruction. This mod is just very good if you're building into Bolt Charge, because every time you trigger a bolt it heals you, which is pretty good. And then obviously Particle Reconstruction is that 27% debuff to all fusion rifles and linear fusion rifles, which, as I'm about to discuss, is basically going to be the hard meta for this dungeon. As for the rest of the mods, in column 2 we have Overclock and Load, Unraveling Orbs. This is going to work very nicely with Disruptor Spike and Horde Shuttle, because damaging an unravel target with a weapon occasionally spawns a Threadling, and we're going to be able to get unraveling rounds very easily with Unraveling Orbs from a Well of Radiance, and this is just going to improve the effects of Sever. Sever is going to be quite strong against the bosses because they are going to be dealing less damage to you, and I believe the boosted Sever from Disruptor Spike is above a 50% damage reduction of the enemy that you apply it to, which is pretty insane. So definitely keep these 3 mods on, I'd say, at least for the boss fight. And then just for ad clear stuff, Flash Over. This basically triples the damage of your lightning bolts from Bolt Charge. This is a must-have mod in my opinion. Dielectric, this is just for getting Bolt Charge faster, and then Dreadful Finisher for keeping your allies topped up with special ammo. If you're leaning into a more void focused build, say if you were on a hunter with Jafalcon for example, I would obviously spec more into the void side of things with Volatile Marksman, Maligned Harvest, perhaps Void Flux as well. Up to you of course, because Titans don't really use void that much. I don't really see the need for it, but yeah, so that's my first loadout. This loadout I've actually just changed the weapons a little bit. I've got it set to have the Multi-Mac, a Psycho Pump with Rolling Storm, just because I think it's quite good for generating Bolt Charge fast, and then the Queenbreaker. So this weapon is going to be our team's main damage source. We've been doing a lot of testing. In fact, as I'm talking, I'll probably have a clip playing in the background of us using this against the Corrupted Puppeteer, and we were actually able to secure a 1 phase of the Corrupted Puppeteer before the nuke even dropped. So this was within that first half of the damage phase. All we had was 1 Divinity, 2 Queenbreakers, and then a Barricade with Storm's Keep. So this is our thinking with the damage strategy. Obviously, we don't know if this is going to work yet, but my job as the Titan is going to be the Storm's Keep person, because if you didn't know already, Bolt Charge is very good. It's like an ignition that you can stack across multiple people, and it deals like triple the damage of an ignition. So if you have 3 people each doing triple the damage of an ignition every couple of seconds, you're adding so much DPS and total damage, and it's all because of Storm's Keep. This lets you detonate the Bolt Charge with weapon damage if you're standing behind the barricade, which is absolutely excellent. That's why we got the 1 phase in the first place from that clip you just saw. So this is a bit experimental. It's a little bit on the unsafe side because obviously you're playing Arc Titan in a contest environment. However, I still think it has some merit. Of course, I will have dim links to all these builds builds in the description, so don't worry, you're not going to be missing anything. But when it comes to a boss encounter, I have these two loadouts set up here on my Titan. The first is a Heart of Inmost Light setup with just, you know, the usual suite of mods, and I'm opting for Storm's Keep and Touch of Thunder pulse grenades, because if I throw my pulse grenade on a boss, it's going to periodically spawn ionic traces, and when they come back to me, it's going to give me charge back for my barricade. So you basically have 100% uptime on Storm's Keep, because you will have your barricade back by the time your previous one is over, basically. So yes, we have Rally Barricade, Thunderclap, Pulse Grenade, Storm's Keep, Touch of Thunder. Then the fragments, I have Resistance, Shock, Frequency to get more Bolt Charge, and then Discharge, so that whenever I get kills with arc weapons, it gives me an Ionic Trace, and collecting an Ionic Trace also gives Bolt Charge. So it's just to improve the amount of Bolt Charge I'm getting personally. And then of course, Thunder Crash as well for damage. Again, here are the mods. You can take a screenshot if you like, but like I said, the dim links will be in the description. And then for the second loadout, which is the damage loadout, here I swap a couple of things. First of all, my weapon changes to a strand primary. Can be whatever, doesn't really matter. The reason for this is, like I explained earlier, if you have unraveling rounds and apply it to a boss, and if you have the artifact mod Horde Shuttle, it will spawn a threadling that will sever the target if you have Disruptor Spike added. So this is just to apply Unravel to the boss, and Unravel is an infinite debuff. It will never fall off provided you continue damaging the target. So this is just there to provide that sever source and unravel source. Keep in mind that Unravel does do a bit of damage over time as well, so it just helps out a little bit. Then I swap from my Psycho Pump to a damage sniper. This can be whatever. I just have the Omniscient Eye from Goss with 4th times the charm and precision instrument. And then of course, because we're on Arc Titan, I swap to Curus, and then with loaders, targeting, surges, time dilations, you name it. But like I said, dim links in the description. So that is going to be my team's damage strategy. We're just going to have one of me on Storm's Keep. If it doesn't work, then I'll just go back to Prismatic, because if this is way too unsafe, I have the same loadout set up here. Curus, Omniscient Eye, Rufus, Queenbreaker, Surges, da-da-da. It's got it all. So this is just here if I can get away with it. If I can't, that's okay. Then when we run out of ammo, I also have this loadout here, which just swaps my surges to solar. So I just have this one here to swap them around. And then if that runs out, I also have an outbreak loadout with kinetic surges. Outbreak is very good, especially in a 3-team scenario. In fact, it's what got us the kill on our previous Vesper dungeon. I would very much recommend bringing in Outbreak as a fire team of 3. It's a lot better than you think it is. Finally, I have a transition loadout. This is just to make transitions a little faster. We are racing for the top 100, so it's things like this that do matter. I have Strand on with Grapple and 100 Discipline just to make sure I get it back the fastest. Lion Rampant with Catapult Lift, and then I just have Alethanim. You could use Mountaintop, but Alethanim has infinite ammo, so this is just going to be there for getting height very quickly, moving around the map very quickly. Eager Edge Sword with a matching Scavenger, just your basic transition loadout. So that is it for Titan. Next, we are going to move on to my Warlock. First things first, I need to get out of the way what the role of the Warlock is, and that is just going to be purely team support. You really aren't going to be the damage dealer of the team. That is more going to be left to the Titans and the Hunters. A Warlock in a contest environment is always going to be a support player. So because of that, I have tailored my loadouts around that. Very much like last time, pretty much the only loadout I would be running if I had to swap to a Warlock for whatever reason would be Speaker's Sight, because despite the nerf, it's still going to be very good in contest because of the restoration and the cure it gives you every time one of the healing grenade turrets hits you. So again, we have a very similar loadout to what we had on the Titan, Multimac, Psycho Pump, Queenbreaker. But yeah, Speaker's Sight, that's really what you want. Of course, we're on Well of Radiance, Healing Rift, Healing Grenade, Incinerator Snap. I've gone for Helion and Touch of Flame. You don't really need Icarus Dash in a contest environment. It's kind of a waste of an aspect slot in my opinion. So just go for things that improve your damage and help your team more. And then for fragments, we have Torches to get Radiant from melee, which also is going to proc Ember of Benevolence whenever I make my teammates Radiant as well. Ember of Benevolence to improve my cooldowns whenever I apply Cure, Radiant Restoration to teammates, Ashes to get more consistent ignitions with my Snap, and then Singeing to get my class ability back faster when I snap things, when I scorch things. As far as the mods are concerned, again, we have all of them on screen here. And then for the artifact, the story is the exact same. I just have Defibrillating Blast, Dreadful Finisher, Flashover, Horde Shuttle, Disruptor Spike, Unraveling Orbs, Overclock and Load, Dielectric, all that sort of stuff. Then for the Warlock, the damage loadout changes to a Sanguine setup because of the extra 10% damage you get from the mark. If you were a Warlock, this could also be something else, because typically if you're going to be using Queenbreaker, the Warlock is the person going to be using Divinity to make it easier to hit your shots. So if that is you, you could instead use a Cenotaph Mask, because then you could have your setup like so. This is going to auto load your div slightly, so you're going to have to reload it less, less, and it's going to let you mark yellow bars for your teammates to make ammo as well. So definitely have this swap available. It's convenient that it's in the same slot as Speaker's Sight, so you don't even have to make a loadout swap for it. You could just have it as a slot in your inventory. Just quickly hop in, swap, mark the enemy that you need to kill them, come back in and swap back. That's all you really need to do. Because another thing I wanted to mention is that unfortunately, because the Queenbreaker is a linear fusion rifle, it does struggle with ammo economy because the ammo that you get from scavenger bricks has been bugged for, it feels like a couple years now. If you have an arc scavenger and pick up a scavenger brick with the Queenbreaker, it will only give you 2 ammo, which is very bad considering it can hold, I believe, a maximum of 27. So if you're going to use Queenbreaker, you really need to invest into lots of heavy ammo generation, which is why having Cenotaph on standby is going to be quite good if you are the Warlock player. You could even have one of your teammates on Aeons as well to double up, but I don't think that'll be necessary. It's just a bit unfortunate that this bug is still around. It's just how linears are, unfortunately. However, the damage is just too good on Queenbreaker at the moment, especially if you have the Rewind Rounds Catalyst. It's too good to not use it, basically. So yes, your damage loadout could contain Cenotaph. It could contain Sanguine as well. It could also contain Speaker's Sight. That's what people were using in Vesper's Host to make sure they didn't die on that spot in Puppeteer. So you have a lot of flexibility here. It just really depends on what the boss encounters are like. If you can sit in a well and survive unscathed, then Sanguine is fine, but I have my doubts. So we'll just have to wait and see. Again, I have Rufus and Omniscient Eye to proc the various artifact perks here. And then I also have an add clear loadout. The first is going to be the Getaway Artist one. This just has Song of Flame, Phoenix Dive, Feed the Void, Bleak Watcher. This is the build that everyone's come to know from the beginning of the final shape. These are the fragments here: Protection, Grace, Balance, Ruin, Purpose for the restoration procs. And I've just got this with Kvostov because this gun is very good. It also got a 10% buff this season because of all auto rifles getting a 10% buff. So this gun is even better than it was already. But also, little self-promo, the build I just posted a couple days ago is going to be quite good. This Geomag Arc Warlock build, you have plenty of healing, you have plenty of crowd control with Ionic Sentry, the blinds. Chaos Reach has a very short cooldown with the buff that Geomag Stabilizers received. You literally need to get maybe 7 or 10 kills, and then you have enough Ionic Traces to get to your super. So if the ad density is high enough, then this build is going to be very good. So if you want to know more about this build specifically, I will have a link to it in the top right corner that you can go and check out. You could also swap this for a Prismatic build. I also have an Inmost Syntho Lightning Surge build on standby. This build got even better this season because of the buff to Lightning Surge. It now deals 30% more damage, and it generates Bolt Charge whenever you hit enemies with it. And given that you have 3 of them with Arcane Needle and lots of other ability spam, you're going to be spamming this stuff basically all the time. So this is another option. Again, I will have the dim link available for these builds in the description, so don't worry, you can copy them if you like. But as I said, if you're a Warlock, your main role is most likely going to be support. So I'm not saying you can forget about these ad clear builds, but just have them on standby. But do keep in mind that your main job is going to be just Well of Radiance. That's all it is, really, as it always has been. Last but not least, we have the Hunter. Now, one thing I do want to say about Hunters is that they will probably provide the least amount of value this time round. However, it's still probably worth taking one in just in case. That's what my team is doing. We're doing 1 Hunter, 1 Warlock, and 1 Titan, because that prepares you for everything. And then when it comes to the decision to swap to something, that's totally fine because we all have our builds ready on all of our other classes as well. But going in with 1-1-1 is probably the smartest choice. So what builds are we going to be taking in on the Hunter? The first I have is a Gerfalcon setup with Hardlight. Now, Hardlight is actually quite good with Gerfalcon this season because of the change to the fundamentals, because basically now if you apply an elemental effect to enemies or yourself that matches the damage type that you have on the weapon that has the fundamentals, it'll give you a 30% damage buff. And because Hardlight is void by default, if you give it volatile rounds, it's just going to have 30% damage buff all the time. You can refresh it, it's just always going to be there. And on top of that, auto rifles received, I think it was a 10% buff versus miners and mages, so this thing is doing upwards of 40% more damage than it was before, which is very good, especially to pair with a Gerfalcon setup. I'm also using the new On the Prowl aspect because this makes you invisible basically 24/7, and it helps your teammates out as well. So we have On the Prowl, Stylish Executioner, Deadfall Tether, Snare Bomb, Vortex Grenade, Gambler's Dodge, and then I have Echo of Cessation, Starvation to get Devour, Reprisal to get my super energy back faster, Persistence for increased duration of buffs, and Echo of Instability to give volatile rounds to my void weapons. You can swap this for something else. This isn't really necessary with Gerfalcon. I just have it there to start the loop easier, that's all. So I have a Gerfalcon set up. The mods you can see are here, but again, links will be in the description. And the artifact here is slightly different. I've just gone for the Void suite of mods this time, obviously because we're using that Falcon setup. Void Flux, Maligned Harvest, Volatile Marksman. It's just going to make that experience a lot better. So that was build number 1. The second is another ad clear build I have on standby, which is the classic Punch Hunter with Winter Shroud and Stylish Executioner and Golden Gun, Courage, Ruin, Purpose, Sacrifice, and Protection. This build is going to be pretty good. Of course, it is a bit more risky because it's very in your enemy's face, but you have so many buffs going on in the background to keep you alive that it is relatively safe to do. That's what one of my teammates was doing in the previous dungeon in Vesper's Host, and he was totally fine. So again, it's just something you'll have to assess when you're actually in there, but it's good to have this build on standby. I also have Necrochasm as the weapon of choice if I choose to use it other than my abilities, because it's just pretty good for ad clear, plus it got that 10% buff. So, you know, this is with the Caliban and Lyre class item, by the way. Other builds, I also have an arc damage resistance focused one. You could do this on Prismatic too. It's kind of up to you. You're going to get the same amount of resist either way. I have both Tempest Strike and Ascension on this one. It's a bit of a sneak peek of a build I'm working on, but if you're not too sure about how to make this work, you can swap Tempest Strike for Flow State and then go Ascension or Tempest Strike. Just make sure you have Flow State. It just helps with your ability regeneration. And then I have, obviously, I probably wouldn't use Arc Staff if it was a boss encounter, but if it wasn't and it was ad clear, then Arc Staff is going to be your best friend. Protection, Discharge, Ions, Focus, and Shock for the fragments. Then for the weapons, I also have Lodestar because it's a bit fun to mess around with, but a lot of your damage is going to be coming from your abilities anyway with this build, so that's okay. Then lastly for the Hunter, or sorry, second to last, we have the damage loadouts for a damage encounter. The first build is again going to be that Caliban Lyre setup, again with Multi-Mac, Psychopomp, and Queenbreaker, because Queenbreaker is going to be the meta in the dungeon. And then for damage, we swap to Celestial Nighthawk with Surges and Time Dilations, and again, Rufus and Omniscient Eye because of the special ammo, economy, and providing Unravel for my team. This is basically a no-brainer choice. This is your best kind of swap DPS super on Prismatic, so very good to have Celestial Nighthawk on the team. I believe this is what my teammate Zeshi is going to be using, and it is what he used in that Corrupted Puppeteer clip that I showed you earlier for the Titan. Finally, for the Hunter, I have a transition loadout on Stasis that is going to let me skate with Shatter Dive and the Sword and Elethanim to boost myself up to high places. Another note I forgot to mention was there is a mod here, I believe, Heavy Ordnance Regeneration. Yes, so this is a mod you can use in an ad clear encounter because it says dealing sustained damage to targets with a heavy machine gun or rocket launcher grants damage resistance and increases grenade melee regeneration for a short duration. I think the grenade and melee regeneration is bugged, but the damage resistance is working, and I believe it's a 25% damage resist for simply dealing damage with a machine gun, which you're going to be doing in an ad clear encounter anyway. So definitely consider throwing this on. It's just free damage resist for shooting your gun. Yeah. Put this on in an ad clear encounter and you will be golden. I also want to add a final note about important weapons to consider bringing in that could be useful in any given situation. So starting with the kinetic slot, we have the Multi-Mac, which I've already talked about with Attrition Kinetic Tremors. Anyone can get this from Banshee. Very good weapon, probably the best kinetic weapon in the game, to be honest. Then I also have a rocket sidearm in the form of the Call. You could go Tenacious Mastery as well, up to you, doesn't really matter. I have Rufus for applying Unravel and Sever, as we said before. Elethanim for transitions, Outbreak for any situation where we run out of ammo and have to rely on primary DPS. I also have a Supremacy with Rewind Rounds and Kinetic Tremors, but if you've been farming Vogue and you have a Pradith's Revenge, use that instead because it gets better rolls. I believe it gets something like Kinetic Tremors Bait and Switch, so that's probably better. And then I have a Slug Shotgun in the form of Heritage with Reconstruction and Recombination. In the energy slot, obviously we have Choir of One, very strong weapon with destabilizing rounds, probably one of the best ad clear weapons in the game, period. Bring this in if you have it. I also have a Wolfpack Rounds Ergo Sum if we end up having to do sword damage, and I really hope we don't because I personally don't like sword damage boss encounters, but it's just there just in case. Psychopomp, just having an area denial frame is just quite good. I have a Zauli's Bane. It's again a very good weapon to have for ad clear in your energy slot. I have the Omniscient Eye Sniper for special ammo damage. I have the role of 4th times the charm Precision Instrument, and another rocket sidearm here. This is the Heal Clip one instead. This is going to be very good in Underlight content because you can heal yourself and your teammates very consistently with it, as well as having good ad clear with Incandescent. Despite the nerfs, rocket sidearms I think are still pretty good, so you know, fine. Then I just have a shotgun that probably won't use this, but I just have it just in case. Finally, Falling Guillotine with Eager Edge for movement, Grand Overture in case it's one of those bosses which requires burst damage, Queenbreaker, obviously the main damage dealer, a machine gun that is Strand, a rocket with Reconstruction Explosive Light, a grenade launcher with Envious Arsenal bait and switch. I just have the Wicked Sister from last season. Also have Tractor Cannon on here in case I ever need to use that, but I doubt I will. So yeah, those are the important weapons I think you need, but above all, the most important are going to be having Queenbreaker for damage, then some sort of special ammo DPS, and just a decent prime rate. So yep, that's every build I'm going to be taking into the Contest Sundered Doctrine race later in the day. To anyone who is going to be doing the dungeon, I wish you the best of luck. These events are the best time to be a Destiny player. They are truly special, so good luck to any of you giving it a try if it's for your first time, or if you're a regular contest enjoyer like myself. Really, best of luck to you. So I hope this video helped you, and I will see you in the next one. If you made it this far, thank you so much. Your support means the world. And if you're really into the content I create, consider becoming a member of the channel, which not only lets you support me in the best way possible, it also nets you a whole host of awesome perks along with it. A massive shout out to these members up on screen, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewer.